Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Act podcast. We are here for another movie review. As always, I am joined by Kieran.
Hello, everybody.
And I am joined by Aidan. If you're an audio-only listener, he is hitting us with a res face. And today we are here to talk about the big movie spectacle of the moment. We are here, of course, to talk about Nolan's Odyssey. First off, just off the bat, what do we all think of it? Aidan, we'll start with yourself. What did you think of it?
It was very, very conflicting in a short space of time for me because I think I went into it just so much belief of that Oppenheimer was just the number one and that's it. Nothing to eclipse whatever Nolan makes. So I think I went into it first time being quite biased and judgmental. And then I left and had a lot of time reflecting on it. And I knew I had to go see it again. I knew it was only fair. And I think the more and more you see it, the more you appreciate the piece of work that he's actually created for it. I just think it's a complete spectacle. And even though each scene that's going to come up when you're seeing it, I was still on the edge of my seat. I was still as invested as I was the first time. And I just think everyone that had put all the hard work into making Oppenheimer, they all knew what they were doing when they were making the Odyssey. Do you know what I mean? Like Jennifer Lane's editing, Ludwig's score, everything is just so cohesive. And I think it is. It is for me the film of the year, and I think it will probably stay like that. So I'm so impressed with it, and everyone's seen it as well. It's not something you need to recommend for people. You know, queues are out the door, 70mm, just still sold out. And that's what Nolan has intended to make. His thing is cinema, bums on seats, and he's doing it, and it's working, and I'm a proud little boy.
And Kieran, what were your thoughts on the Odyssey?
Well, I saw it opening night, midnight showing at the IMAX, the Science Centre, and I think for everybody there, it was just, but it's the same for every Nolan film. It's just kind of an event for everybody. I mean,
a moment, an experience, yeah.
Oh, 100%. And there was old couples there, couples in the 70s, coming up for this at midnight, to see it on the biggest screen that they possibly can. Don't know if that's anything to do with their vision or anything, just to see every movie in IMAX at the Science Centre, but it was just one of those kind of events. It was packed. I checked 2 days before, and the only seats were left were the seats down the front, and I thought those aren't going to go. Nobody's going to pay to sit down and Willem Dafoe looking up at the screen and but the seats went as well. And it's just the summer belongs to Nolan. Every time he brings anything out, it was Oppenheimer the last time. Didn't
you've got Spielberg's summer. Do you know what I mean? That was always the thing. But Nolan can bring a film out at any point of the year, though, and that's his moment. That's it. He's got the IMAX rights. He's got the license, the window. Yeah, he runs the show now.
I always associate July. My birthday's in July, so I always kind of associate that with Nolan because The Dark Knight was July, Oppenheimer's July. Everything's always July for Nolan. He kind of rules that month when it comes to blockbusters. I think Spielberg had May, June kind of locked down for years, but the whole month of July, everybody was just hyping up for Nolan so much so that it knocked Spider-Man out of the IMAX.
Yeah,
that's the wildest part.
Yeah, and to knock a film of that magnitude, Spider-Man's obviously more far-reaching than the Odyssey in terms of pop culture, but for something that's filmed for IMAX, and I think they kind of hammered that home and initially for behind-the-scenes stuff for Spider-Man, this is filmed for IMAX, this is big format stuff, and they couldn't get in anywhere because Nolan taken over it. IMAX belongs to Nolan.
Well, I'll add to that as well because see, obviously you've got Doomsday and Dune Part 3 coming out. Filling the wave with Dune's got that IMAX right again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then now Doomsday's trying to sell it of that. Infinity Vision, which is no different to the normal screen. It's just a way of selling this is another version, an alternate to IMAX.
Yeah, that
people know. To me, if you know, IMAX is number one.
Yeah, and I think with the Infinity Vision thing, that just kind of screams I think maybe they've seen because as much as obviously Nolan wanted to make this film and have it filmed entirely on IMAX, it's still a major gimmick for the marketing of it to be if you see this in IMAX, you see it the way it's supposed to be viewed, which adds to the allure of it.
That's not what intended.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to, you kind of pushes you to go see it like that. So I think with Marvel, they're maybe now going, oh, Infinity Vision, and then if they can sell screens on Infinity Vision, they might get more people through the door. Just to add on to what you guys said there, I saw it as well. I absolutely loved it. I've seen it twice now, once just in a regular kind of normal format, and then once in IMAX. And I was actually at the Science Centre in row two. That's the only seats I could get when I was booked to go see it. And even like in row two, honestly, I didn't even notice it. Maybe because I was out the side, so I'm not like I'm not just straight up. I'm sort of craned over a wee bit. I wasn't like just neck just raked back, but like I genuinely didn't even notice it. Like I was, as you said, and just gripped watching it for a second time. And to me, obviously, I've kind of mentioned it that I think Oppenheimer's great, but I have my issues with Oppenheimer. I don't think it's the undisputed, like I have just little slight things that kind of take me out of it in places, which I don't have here. And obviously Oppenheimer's fantastic, but the kind of little issues that I had with it aren't present here. They're nowhere to be seen with the Odyssey, and I genuinely loved it. Thought it was fantastic. One of the things I do want to touch on then, obviously a sort of big talking point going into it was, I guess, the authenticity of how you adapt a myth. When, how authentic can it be when, there's a big, 100-foot tall Cyclops, but also, oh, black lady's in it, oh no! But in terms of the way that the myth is adapted and the kind of creative swings that he takes, how did you find those? Because one thing I really liked, kind of what was maybe pointed out by Tom Holland, is that all of Odysseus' story is the idea, how he views it anyway, is that's the story's being passed on and being distorted from person to person to person by the time it gets back to them. Whereas everything we see with Telemachus and the kind of, I guess, the real time of it is correct, which I think is a very interesting lens to view it through.
I think from the get-go, see when he says in an apparent time of magic and gods, he sets the tone there. But then even, I think he almost, he doesn't show you things. Do you know what I mean? Like when he's speaking to his vision of Athena, Odysseus, and she asks him like, how does the waves move? How do the clouds, like these are the gods, and that was people's interpretation back in the day. I think it was a very, I'm so glad. I don't think he would ever have done it, but like showing Zeus, showing Poseidon, Poseidon's wrath, it would be like the wreckage of the ship, the water. Like that's the thing I really respect, and I think he just, like, you watched it from like the crew's perspective. Do you know what I mean?
It's a very nuanced take to gods and the kind of mythological side of it.
Yeah, and I loved that part specifically, but like you agree as well, there was a lot of backlash coming into it with like Helena Troy or Elliot Page, and all these things when you saw it had no importance to the film or the storyline whatsoever. They were like 3 minutes of characters in a 3-hour film.
Yeah.
So I think he nailed it of that. And like you said, there's such a wide range of people going to see it. You've got, I had it as well in the Science Centre, old couples, they're bringing out like the Odyssey, the book, they're sitting with it, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and you've got children that are going to see it. I think it's his most maybe accessible film, which is a kind of weird.
It's odd. Maybe narratively, I would agree with narratively.
And obviously, specifically due to like his way he perceives time and uses it through films, it's very similar to Oppenheimer in that terms with the narrative, but he doesn't meddle about it as much, and it's very easy to understand the story, which is a big feat for such a big film and a big, so much put into it. So I'm impressed in that part.
I think as well, obviously you mentioned Nolan's sort of tendency to sort of loosely kind of walk us through a timeline and take us to different parts of it. It feels very cohesive here. It's not a linear story at all, but we completely and I suppose it's because both sides of the narrative have a different narrator essentially. Like Telemachus is driving forward the current story of it is, and Odysseus is driving forward the sort of the retelling of everything since Troy.
The journey. Yeah.
So you can so obviously when you're looking at those two things, you understand, right, well, this is what's happening now, as it were, and this is what's happened before. But it really, there are times with Nolan films where I get it when people say it's too hard to follow. This one, as you say, probably narratively one of his most accessible films in recent years anyway.
That's down to the editing as well. Do you know what I mean? It's again like Oppenheimer, a 3 hour film. It keeps you engaged, and it doesn't really linger on scenes, and it gives you enough time to kind of breathe and feel them. It doesn't jump over stuff.
It feels kind of episodic in that sense, where I can see where some people's issues where like it was kind of choppy in bits because you're a lot of it is just island hopping and running back to the boat, as people have been saying. Like most of the line is just get back to the ship. But
the Mr. Sunday movies, it's get back to the boat, boys.
Basically, it's just over 2.5 hours of getting back to the boat. But
I had someone speak to me as well about that, about running back to the ship thing. See, like the last Dragonian scene, the one set in Scotland. He was like, that wasn't needed in the film, and I can agree with him. But I think, see, when you're there and you're watching it and you're part of it, what's wrong with watching more and being enjoying, living through it and experiencing it?
I think as well, maybe what the one kind of thing I would say to that, because I think that scene's brilliant, and I think that scene completely earns its place in the film. And if not, maybe just because of that line at the end where he says, it's very heavy-handed, it is a sort of whack over the head with, our age of bronze is collapsing. But, and obviously because of that, they don't, there's no point where they're on the boat and they're like, oh, those lads, their armour was made of maybe iron or something, whatever it could be. But it's like when you kind of, and I don't think you need to know this when you get into it, but having a sort of vague understanding of history and the Bronze Age collapse and what people call the Sea People, which is, the kind of larger theory about how the Bronze Age collapsed going into the Iron Age, like knowing that, and then that, again, very heavy-handed line at the end, it ties a couple bows together, but again, if you don't get that, I don't think it necessarily takes away from it either.
Yeah.
I think the main thing was seen for what it is.
Yeah, I think the main thing was just Zeus's Law, and I thought people should know it, but then when I watched it again, I was like, it tells you every 20 minutes near enough what Zeus's Law is.
Yeah, you're constantly.
So it's like you don't need to know. Yeah, and I think that was important, and people didn't leave questioning it or needing to know that, what did this mean or this or that. I think it was just very, like you said, the easiest kind of explanation of a Nolan film. Like there's no debate about, see, what did this mean? What did you interpret? I think it was very black and white.
Yeah,
it's really straightforward from a narrative sense, I think, because you're kind of starting out with the Zeus's Law thing, and then obviously you have the initial breaking of it being the siege of Troy and the sacking of Troy, and them kind of disrespecting Zeus's Law by using obviously trickery and Odysseus' cunning to get into the city rather than adhering to the rules of war or whatever. But then everything just kind of goes to pot after that, because even with the Cyclops, they would expect him to welcome them, but were they did they treat the Trojans like that as well?
Yeah. I want to ask you a few things, sorry, about like practicality. What did you think about that? Like the way Nolan went out his way to attempt to do all these things as practical as possible.
So I really liked it. I mean, I think with every Nolan film, because of his insistence to do everything as practical as possible, there is that real sort of, all of his films are incredibly tangible. It's like everything you see it, you know it. It's almost like you're in the cinema. You can, as if you can reach out to it. But it felt like more present than ever, I would say, here, just because you can tell everything is on the beach or in the middle of the desert or, in a real cave or up a real mountain. It just adds that depth to it.
Authenticity. Yeah.
It gives you a properly lived in world as well, where I think there's times where we're so used to like an outline around an actor or a character, and you can tell this isn't on location. Like I think probably making the Spider-Man like that one where it's is it Flash and he's on his phone in the middle of the street and you can just tell this
or
is
clear as day,
green screen.
The trailers for Odyssey, you know what I mean, like Doomsday. You see them all standing out. It looks like kind of the Battle World scene. Yeah. And it's just a green screen. And then you go in, or then you'd see the Dune trailer, and then you see the Odyssey, and you'd be like, that's real. That's scenes, that's sets. Do you know what I mean?
It looks like a real movie, as opposed to on the volume or in a green screen. And people want movies to look like movies, even if it's things that are maybe a bit outlandish or...
People want the money's worth. And you can tell when you watch the Odyssey, like there's effort and hard work put behind it. My money's rewarded by watching it.
You want to see that budget on screen, and you can feel that this is a $250 million film.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go and watch something like no harm to it. If you go and watch Spider-Man No Way Home, for instance, during COVID, you can tell there's a lot of green screen being used here.
Yeah,
there's a lot of camera trickery and things.
It's
hand
what
in
I
hand, I
refer
would
to.
add that saved the cinema with COVID. Like that saved a lot. Like that was one of the only times working during it.
It's what I refer to most Marvel films as being recorded in, because the biggest fucking perpetrator of it was Quantumania. I call it the Quantumania cupboard. You like everything. Like, I'm watching that Doomsday trailer. I'm like, that's the Quantumania cupboard. They're back in the Quantumania cupboard. But one of the things as well, I do just want to kind of mention it. One of the sort of, I guess, the big twist on it is the Sea People reveal. This is the sort of thing that Nolan has added. I mentioned it there. The kind of prevailing theory on why the Bronze Age collapsed is that there was a civilization of seafaring people who were sacking cities and not adhering to the rules of war of the time, and because of that, it led to so many of the great civilizations collapsing, because these boats would just arrive, destroy the city, and leave.
Yeah.
How much? When that kind of clicked to me, when I heard of the Sea People, and when that clicked to me, I absolutely loved that. And as I say, people, want to cry about the authenticity of an adaptation of a 4,000-year-old poem, 3,000-year-old poem. But that twist to you, or that reveal to you guys, how did that feel? What did you think of that?
It's like you said, it's just so rewarding. Do you know what I mean? It gives you the implication, and I think it leads on very clearly just before they go to the island with Cersei, where they turn up and it's the village and it's the guy speaking to them in a different language, and he says, we thought yous were the Sea People, and they're like, no. And then Cersei makes it like plain and centre, and it's my second favourite scene. But when she turns them back from pigs to humans and she says, go back into your disguises, like that, they don't even know then. And Odysseus, maybe he kind of has the burden or the weight on it. He knows he's not the Sea People, but he can't control it. He can't control, like when he's in the whole Siege of Troy, he's just walking about watching it. The whole, what did they say? It was something like the destruction of, in a night or two, or like years of hard work.
Yeah, it's like 10 years of war reduced in a day or something. Yeah.
And then when it then explains it, and it's Anne Hathaway, Penelope, that realises that he's the Sea People, he admits it, and it's like the burden, the sense of weight off his shoulders, letting go. Like he's reaching out to Athena and he's accepting the responsibility that he had. Very, very rewarding for me.
Yeah.
I suppose in that way it kind of harkens back to the themes that you'd kind of covered in Oppenheimer as well. Like, can you live with what you've done, with what you've created and what you've started?
Yeah.
Because obviously with Oppenheimer it's the creation of the atom bomb, but for Odysseus it's his willingness to completely destroy that kind of welcoming law that is Zeus's law, to treat others as you want to be treated, and then he just kind of decimates it completely within a day, just to get the upper hand against the Trojans. So I think that's obviously like kind of the thematic heart of the film, I would say.
As in both films, like Oppenheimer, like Odysseus knows the weight and he needs to accept like responsibility. So when he goes to Underworld, they say like accept your actions. Or when he's leaving, what's her name? I can't mind. Charlize Theron, sorry. She says you need to accept Poseidon's wrath. I've spoke to Poseidon that he won't kill you, but you need to accept it.
Yeah. And I think as well, you really see it in that scene in the sacking of Troy, and I think you see him portraying exactly what he wants to portray, which is the character having to deal with the fact that their actions have destroyed the world that they know. Their actions have fundamentally changed how their life is going to be forever. It's the same in Oppenheimer. It's evidently a theme is carried between them both, and I think that scene in Troy is, to me, maybe my favourite scene of the year. I would say closely followed by the scene in Cersei's house. That is just fantastic.
I've got two things to say. I've just noticed that there. See, like there's the Siege of Troy in two separate scenes. It's when John Bernthal's explaining, did you see what it was like inside the horse? And it's so like it's just cool. Like that's the best way to describe it. It's like so methodically planned, the edit and the score, and it's just cool. You then see Agamemnon coming out the gates, but the second time you see the Siege of Troy is a completely different perspective. You see it from Matt Damon just being like zoned out, watching all this stuff. This is on his creation. Like, and he's caused this, and it's just him walking around feeling the senselessness of like the chaos that has happened. I never noticed that first, and now that I think about it, it's very impressive.
And
Yeah,
to me,
the first. Sorry, Jake,
no, you go. No, you go.
The first scene when you're seeing the sacking of Troy, that's kind of like the glory of war, like the romanticised version of it that you would tell, the story you would tell back to people who weren't there, and if you wanted to gloat about this is how we sacked the city of Troy.
That's Bernthal almost in a way explaining it to Tom Holland, but that is what happened though.
That's the way. That's Bernthals' perspective. That's
that's how he views it.
Is it
Menelaus? Yeah,
that's Menelaus' perspective. Like he had a goal. He was going there to get his wife back.
Yeah, and like whereas Menelaus views that as like his great victory, Odysseus views it as like his ultimate downfall.
Yeah,
and I think when we're watching it kind of through Odysseus' eyes, and we see when we get the explanation of Athena, and obviously Zendaya's Athena has been sort of following Odysseus throughout the story, and then when we have that realization, when we have that scene where she was just a priestess at Athena's temple who was murdered by Odysseus's men, and it's that moment when he admits this to Penelope, and his grief is
reaches
finally
out for her.
Yeah, and it's almost if he absolves his grief and she's no longer there. That to me was just honestly one of the most beautiful parts of this film. It brought tears to my eye.
That for me was the best, like jaw dropping moment. I would think of like, oh wow, that's him acknowledging it was that his perspective of Athena was the woman that was killed in Troy. But you touched on your favourite scene was Troy. Mine's is the siren scene. Like I just think. The accumulation, everything in it, the editing, the score, Ludwig's score is just it. But in the cinemas, when they're putting the wax in their ears, half side to your left, side to the right,
it's so immersive.
And the way Matt Damon explains, like what was the song like? That indescribable itch, like it's just the delicious itch that you scratch. I just love that. And Nolan, I know Nolan's always had some issues with like writing and screenplays or whatever, but I think he's clearly spent in his last couple of films like Oppenheimer and then this a lot of time and effort and thought behind it.
That creative choice as well to have it kind of muted,
to not show it,
is astounding. It's such an inspired choice to have. Like the only person that can hear it and ever will hear it is Odysseus. Like not even the audience is allowed to hear
like
that.
The ship. You feel like a member of the ship. Like you almost wanted to hear the sound.
Yeah.
And then you don't. And that's it for me.
That was fantastic. And I think as well, something we've kind of briefly touched on is like Ludwig's score and how like how it was all just instruments used that they were almost had to rebuild based on
not orchestral.
3,000-year-old paintings and tapestries and things, just building instruments from scratch to give it its own completely unique feel. And it does it's like nothing I've ever heard before because they had to rebuild and remake a lot of these instruments. And I think in that scene in particular, when it's just essentially the dual flutes and you can just very vaguely hear like water
the windwork is extraordinary.
It's that scene is
I had a lot of thought about it. Like I'm just such a sucker for like Ludwig's score with Tenet. I just think it's so like astounding. And then obviously Oppenheimer is like that is the best. And then I was trying to compare the Odyssey and Oppenheimer, and I was like, I think Ludwig is just on such a roll, and he does something completely different every single time, and reinvents his own choices of like making scores and music.
But I think as well, and I don't want to necessarily throw slander on the name of any of the great composers throughout history, but I think because he is like so young and kind of grew up online and with all this kind of music and inspiration at his fingertips from like a very, very young age, because he grew up online and because he's like learned so many instruments, and it's so clear that you can tell even through his work on like Community years ago and his work with Donald Glover and Childish Gambino, like he's been around so much and has been influenced by so much to the point that, again, like I said, I don't want to necessarily throw dirt on the name of any of the legendary composers, but to him it doesn't have to be the 100-piece orchestra, it doesn't have to be a big brass section. To him, he's like, right, let me find a 1920s blues guitar and let me work my sound around this. Let me figure out what I'm playing.
He's trying, he's taking gambles, he's ambitious. And I saw Nolan get asked on a runway for one of the opening nights about like, would you ever work with Hans Zimmer again? And he says, I'd love to. I think he's just so like hand in hand, a perfect match with Ludwig, that it's so hard not to go away from Ludwig.
And like I think with Ludwig's like talent he could very easily, you know, he could very easily turn it to like he had before. Like he was making a really really good living in production and like music, like chart music production, and working with artists like Childish Gambino and things like that. But it's very clear that he wants to do this, and honestly, could turn his hand to anything and probably be the best in the world at it, regardless. Like,
and this is a wild part. How old is he? He's like 34, maybe something like that.
yeah, around about that age. He's young.
He's on a roll for like Oscars. Like he seems like he's near enough very high favourite every time he releases a piece of music.
Do you think he has this one back?
I think so, personally.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah,
he's so versatile. I mean, if you look at his resume, I mean, you've got Black Panther, you've got Sinners, you've got Oppenheimer, you've got this, you've got The Mandalorian. Like,
yeah,
he's got so many strings to his bow.
See, for Sinners, right, my biggest point that I'd push for Sinners is it's Ludwig's film. Like, the film is music.
Yeah, because music's so inherently part of the DNA of the story.
And it works. He just nails it every time. But yeah, going on to like predictions and stuff, I think Best Picture's very likely for me.
Yeah,
for the Oscars,
I would say so. I think
editing's up there, scores definitely, set designs.
Yeah, I think maybe the only, because I think for all the big ones, for everything that's out so far, I feel like it's got most of them wrapped up. The only thing I can think, and I've not even seen it yet, but like, I do think obviously Matt Damon is in with a shout, but I don't. But the insanity of whatever Tom Cruise has done on Digger, I think might win out.
Yeah, I think
you've still got to think of Chalamet as well.
Yeah,
that's true.
I just don't. Yeah, I don't think Matt Damon will ever win. But again, I was surprised when like Michael B. Jordan won for Sinners. I don't think they're going to get much. Maybe, I don't know, Pattinson Best Supporting, but Pattinson could get Best Supporting for Dune.
But he could also get Best Actor for Prime Time if Prime Time.
Yeah.
I think they might push it wrong. I know they were looking at Anne Hathaway Best Actress, Best Supporting. I think she might get nominated, but wouldn't win. I would love to see Cersei Best Supporting Actress. I think she could be a lock-in for that.
Samantha Morton.
Yeah.
Samantha Morton. What she did, like you've heard, Nolan said there's only 2 standing ovations I've had in films, Heath Ledger and Samantha Morton. That pushes a lot, that has a lot of weight to it in terms of like the voting audience. So,
in terms of what you said there as well, pushing Pattinson the wrong way, I think they've done similar with Timothy when it came to A Complete Unknown and Dune 2. So maybe this is that time. When about Dune 3.
I would take it. Dune, Chalamet Best Actor now for Dune. You know, his redemption of not winning for March Supreme. You know, it seems like he's got a bit of bite in his teeth for making this film, and he's put this whole work towards it. But we're on Odyssey, so
Damon's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah,
you think so?
I really do.
Now, from what I've seen this year,
I think like out of out of like the kind of Matt Damon performances like ever, I put it up there maybe only under Good Will Hunting.
I think his performance is very nuanced. I think that's why I don't like appreciate it enough of terms of like winning something. Normally people win by like being like what you're thinking Tom Cruise will be with Digger, like completely like guns blazing, like unique, different. Matt Damon's just audiences love it. You know, it's similar to maybe DiCaprio with One Battle After Another.
It's an understated performance.
Yeah, and I know he's going to get a lot of love for it, and he will be nominated.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting lead up for the Oscar race.
Yeah.
Best Cast will be an interesting one as well.
Yeah.
I think, can you really beat that cast?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to overlook this cast at a whole.
The category's weird though. Do you know what I mean? Like, Sentimental Value had the most nominations for roles, but didn't win Best Cast.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's it determined on? It's a weird one.
I think maybe though with that, Sentimental Value was quite a small cast, and does it Sinners ended up winning it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like
Sinners on it.
and like there's so many like memorable performances in Sinners out with just the kind of main ones. Even like what was her name, Grace, the woman that owns the shop that ends up inviting them in and causing the whole fucking chaos at the end. Like she's got such a memorable.
Man, you fuckers.
Yeah, like so. I think maybe it's weighted towards that. That's a much bigger cast with a lot of people putting in like very very memorable performances. Not to say that the performances in Sentimental Value weren't, but kind of built around the strength of like 5 actors as opposed to sort of into the double digits with Sinners.
Yeah. Overall, though, what we thinking? Odyssey, 5 stars.
Yeah, it's my film of the year so far.
Yeah.
I gave it a 9 on first watch, but
I struggled.
I'd probably bump it up to a 10.
I purposely didn't. I just went off Letterboxd for a while and I just sat and thought and went to see it again. And the third time for me, I went in the Science Centre and I just went like, this is that. This is like an experience.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that then, thank you guys so much for watching this video and listening to this video and listening to this podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Make sure you're always here for all of the updates from the Third Act team. All of our links will be down below.
I just want to say one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Celtic have signed for San for £6 million. He's such a good player from Egypt. That's me.
And that's it.
We knew it was going to happen.
Aye.
We knew it was going to happen.
Aye.
Patrick Lowry's been found.